You don't have kids, so paying your brother's $120,000 MBA tuition is your family duty, my mother demanded in front of the entire dinner table. I looked right at her, smiled, and said no. I worked 60-hour weeks as a senior financial analyst while my brother, Caleb, lived like a prince on our parents' endless excuses. I refused to let him drain my hard-earned savings. But 2 weeks later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. It was Caleb's elite university professor. His voice was grim, cutting straight to the point. Your brother just won a major fellowship for his business plan. So, why does the original metadata file list you as the sole author? The restaurant smelled of expensive garlic butter and desperation, though only one of those things belonged to me. We were sitting at La Famiglia, downtown, celebrating my younger brother Caleb getting accepted into an elite MBA program. My mother, Evelyn, had insisted on the reservation, but as usual, the bill was going to magically drift toward my end of the table like a homing pigeon. Across from me, Caleb was glowing. He wore a crisp blazer that cost more than my first month's rent, flashing a smile that had charmed professors, bank loan officers, and my mother into believing he was destined for the Forbes cover page. Isn't it wonderful? Evelyn beamed, reaching across the white tablecloth to pat Caleb's hand before turning her sharp, calculating eyes onto me. And with your salary at the firm, Gerald, helping him cover the tuition gap will be nothing. It is $120,000 total, spread across 2 years. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. I set it down slowly, the gentle clink against the ceramic plate sounding far too loud in the sudden quiet of our booth. Tuition gap? I kept my voice flat, holding back the fatigue of a 60-hour workweek spent staring at corporate spreadsheets. Mom, we talked about this. Caleb received a partial grant, and he has student loan options. I am not funding his degree. The table went dead silent. Caleb's smile froze, his eyes darting sideways toward our mother, as if looking for backup. Evelyn's face flushed to dangerous, mottled crimson. She leaned forward, her rings clicking against the water glass. You have no excuse, Gerald. You and your wife don't have kids. You don't have real expenses holding you back. Your money is family money, and Caleb's future represents all of us. How can you be so selfish? Everyone at nearby tables was starting to glance over, drawn by the sudden drop in temperature at our booth. My jaw tightened, every muscle in my neck locking up as I looked at the brother who had never worked a hard day in his life, and the mother who had enabled him every single step of the way. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't yell. I just looked straight into my mother's eyes and delivered the words that would detonate our entire family dynamic. I said no. Not a single dime of my hard-earned money is going toward his tuition. The silence that followed my refusal wasn't the polite kind. It was the suffocating weight of an explosion waiting to happen. Evelyn stared at me as if I had just slapped her across the face, while Caleb dropped his gaze to his water glass, wearing the practiced expression of a wounded victim. You'll regret this, my mother hissed, her voice trembling with restrained fury before she grabbed her designer bag and stormed out of the restaurant, dragging Caleb behind her like an offended aristocrat. That night, my phone began to vibrate relentlessly. First came a scathing text from Evelyn calling me a traitor to the family, followed by a barrage of guilt-tripping messages from extended relatives who only knew the warped, one-sided version of events Caleb had fed them since childhood. They accused me of hoarding my wealth, acting superior, and turning my back on my own flesh and blood. Every single message hammered away at the same old theme, that my success wasn't mine to keep, but a communal fund meant to fuel Caleb's limitless ambitions. I turned my phone on silent, tossing it onto the nightstand, but the digital buzzing was nothing compared to the bitter irony gnawing at my thoughts. They had no idea how that money was actually made. They saw a senior financial analyst living comfortably, but they never saw the midnight oil, the blood, sweat, and endless hours spent designing complex corporate financial models and strategic supply chain frameworks. Just a few weeks prior, Caleb had come over under the guise of wanting career guidance. He had brought takeout, flashed that familiar, winning smile, and asked me to walk him through my latest proprietary structural workflow for restructuring mid-sized companies. Trusting him completely as my brother, I had spent hours opening up my personal project files, explaining every intricate detail of the balance sheet algorithms and strategic data metrics I had spent years perfecting. I thought we were bonding. I thought he was finally taking his career seriously on his own merit. Sitting alone in my dark living room, the pieces started clicking together into a deeply unsettling picture. He hadn't wanted advice. He had wanted a shortcut. He had harvested my professional intellectual property, repackaged it as his own breakthrough academic concept, and submitted it to his elite university as the cornerstone of his MBA program. And now, my own family expected me to finance the very tuition that would launch a career built entirely on my stolen labor. My jaw tightened in the quiet room. They wanted to fight, but they had no idea what kind of storm they had just unleashed. 2 weeks slipped by in a tense, freezing silence from my family, a quiet before the storm that I spent buried in my own work, trying to push the memory of La Famiglia out of my head. Then, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, my desk phone rang. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar university extension. Expecting another angry relative or some automated alumni donation pitch, I answered with a flat, guarded tone. "Hello, this is Gerald Hartman." "Mr. Hartman?" A deep, authoritative voice cut through the line, carrying the unmistakable weight of academic seniority. "My name is Professor Harrison. I chair the graduate business department at the university where your brother, Caleb, is enrolled." My grip on the phone tightened instantly, every instinct flaring up. "Professor, is there a problem with Caleb?" "That depends on how you look at it," Harrison said, his tone measured and remarkably sharp. "I am not calling about his tuition or the administrative drama surrounding his enrollment. I am calling because Caleb just entered our annual departmental capstone competition and won the top fellowship award. His submission was a comprehensive, highly advanced restructuring model for AI-driven logistics supply chains." A cold knot formed in my stomach as the pieces clicked into place with terrifying clarity. "Right," I managed to say, my voice dropping an octave. "His project. Here is why I am calling you directly, Mr. Hartman," Harrison continued, the atmosphere in his office seeming to travel down the telephone wire. "As part of our standard verification protocol for high-level grants, we run a deep forensic audit on the submitted digital files. When our IT department pulled the original metadata properties hidden deep within the code architecture, the document authorship didn't list Caleb at all. It listed a corporate framework registered under your professional credentials, complete with your exact design patterns and algorithmic blueprints. The office around me seemed to fade into a blur. The blueprint I had spent years crafting, the one Caleb had coaxed out of me under the guise of casual career advice, had been submitted word for word as his own original masterwork. "Mr. Hartman," the professor pressed gently, waiting for an answer. "Are you aware that your brother entered our competition using your professional intellectual property?" The silence on the line stretched out so long I could hear the faint hum of the professor's office air conditioner. My knuckles were white where I gripped the phone. "Mr. Hartman? Are you still there?" Professor Harrison's voice broke through my shock, demanding an answer that could shatter my brother's entire future. "I'm here, Professor," I said, my voice dangerously steady. "And to answer your question, no, I did not authorize him to submit my proprietary financial frameworks as his own masterwork." A sharp intake of breath hissed through the receiver. Good God. I had a feeling, but protocol required me to verify it with you first. The structural depth of that model goes far beyond anything a first-year MBA student could conceptualize. He brought it in, claimed it was his own breakthrough thesis, and secured a $15,000 fellowship plus guaranteed placement for a high-profile corporate consultancy incubator. A cold rage flared in my chest. Caleb hadn't just tried to scam me out of tuition money at dinner. He had built an entire academic pedestal using stolen intellectual property, intending to launch a career as a corporate fraudster under the guise of being a prodigy. "What happens now?" I asked, looking down at the messy desk covered in my own real notes and design drafts. "Academic fraud of this magnitude is a zero-tolerance offense," Harrison replied, his tone chillingly professional. "If you are willing to formalize your statement and provide your original creation timestamps and unedited metadata files, the disciplinary committee will convene tomorrow morning." We will strip him of the award, invalidate his submission, and initiate formal expulsion hearings for academic dishonesty. Send me the email address, I said without a single second of hesitation. I'll send you every single file, every timestamp, and every draft. Let's make sure everything is completely transparent. After hanging up, I spent the next 2 hours compiling the digital evidence, original spreadsheets, uncompressed design iterations, and code logs dating back years before Caleb even applied to the program. As I hit send on the comprehensive file transfer, a grim satisfaction settled over me. My mother had demanded I finance his future, but she had no idea that the very foundation she wanted me to pay for was built on stolen sand, and the tide was about to come in hard. The disciplinary committee meeting didn't take long. By Friday afternoon, Professor Harrison called me back with the final verdict. Caleb had been formally expelled from the graduate program, stripped of his fellowship, and flagged for severe academic dishonesty. His grand academic career had collapsed before it even finished its first semester. Naturally, the shockwave hit my family within minutes. My phone started blowing up with frantic calls from my mother and hysterical voicemails from Caleb, screaming that I had ruined his life, demanding to know why I had sabotaged him, and begging me to fix it. I didn't answer a single call. I didn't block them either. I just let the silence speak volumes. They had wanted me to fund a fraud, to play the quiet, obedient provider, while they built an empire on my stolen intellect. Instead, I pulled the rug out from under the whole rotten structure. Sitting back in my chair, looking out at the quiet evening sky, a profound sense of peace washed over me. Some doors are meant to be slammed shut, and some toxic obligations are meant to be broken. I didn't owe them a single explanation, a single dime, or a single second more of my life. For the first time, my hard work, my talent, and my boundaries belonged entirely to me.